All right, so welcome to the first ever episode of the Disciples d'Hippocrate or Disciples of Hippocrates in English. This is a premiere. We've always done our episodes in French, and it's still going to be part of our identity because, we're in Quebec. But we also wanted to incorporate in English into some of our episodes because sometimes it allows us to get the best of our guests. Sometimes some of them are just more comfortable in English. So that's exactly what we're going to do today. We're having the honor to receive Dr. Pouresa, who is a dentist specializing and working in the USA, in California to be exact. And we're super honored to have you today. So first and foremost, who are you and what do you do?
Thank you for having me today. It's an honor being here. I'm Dr. Sep Pouresa, and I'm a cosmetic dentist based in Beverly Hills, California. I've been practicing there for the last few years. Incredibly blessed. You get to meet a lot of great people, great energy, and very, very blessed to be there since.
And if we start with where it all started, right? You're from Montreal originally. What's your background? What led you to eventually doing your dentist DMD in McGill, and then we're gonna go into what eventually led you to outer state.
Yeah, back then it felt so out of reach. I remember. So I grew up in Montreal and the West Island. I went to a public school at Félix Leclerc. And I remember, at the time, dentistry, especially let alone McGill dentistry, was just out of reach. Especially because I didn't have any family that was a doctor nor a dentist, right? So I remember I was lucky enough to shadow the mom of a friend. I remember going there on weekends and with my little notebook at the age of 13. And I would just take notes. The practice was open on weekends, so I would go there every Saturday morning. And the patients were just confused. They were like, what is this kid so young doing there with a notebook taking notes? And it was really at that moment when I saw the smiles and the energy that patients were exuding after aesthetic treatment. That's what really stood with me. And I knew I wanted to practice dentistry, but specifically cosmetic dentistry. And I worked towards it. I remember applying to McGill, didn't work to dentistry specifically, did not work out. So I did a bachelor's in kinesiology, then applied to McGill. And I remember back then going into California was also out of reach, right? When you're growing up in Montreal, the opportunities to go abroad in a place like Beverly Hills and practice there have just so many unanswered questions. Like, how do you get a work permit, right? How do you get a job? There's just so many. How do you get a license, right? And I remember just going through trials and tribulations until it worked out.
And what is it? Is going to Beverly Hills or in the States in the first place, was it part of the plan initially, or is it something that you kind of discovered or thought about along the process when you were doing your dentist school?
Yeah. So when I was in my second to third year of dental school, I was also competing in men's physique, which is pretty much bodybuilding, natural bodybuilding, but with an emphasis on physique and aesthetics and symmetry and proportions. And I think just that coupled with the dentistry and the malodexterity and seeing what effect changing someone's smile and confidence does in terms of energy, I think that's what stood with me. And I knew that I wanted just aesthetics. And I didn't want to be a dentist where I do fillings and extractions and root canals. I just wanted to just focus on cosmetics. And I knew that it wouldn't be Montreal. It would have to be specifically Beverly Hills.
Okay. And go ahead.
So the way, because for me it's a little bit unknown what's like the dentistry program like. So when you're what I had in mind is when you're finishing dentistry, you're kind of a generalist, and most people can start their practice from there. Is that it, or is there?
That's exactly it. So once you finish your DMD, you have the choice on being able to practice right away or do a residency.
Yeah.
And at the time, I wanted to do a residency, but in the States. Very funny story, is actually an inspiring one. I remember when I was in, again, middle of second year dental school, when I knew I wanted to go to LA. I remember reaching out to this one program in LA that I wanted really badly. So I exchanged emails. They said I can shout out the program, and I was like, "This is great. It's gonna work out." So I got all the vaccinations they wanted. I got the letters signed by the dean, and I was just ready to go and shadow and just to show face, right? And then communications were then cut. I didn't hear back from them, and then I was like, "Well, I thought this was going great." So what I did was I just booked a flight the next day, and I just showed up unannounced, and I'm like, I am Sep Pouresa. I'm interested in your program. And I just showed up to your doorstep, but I just want to show that I'm interested in your program. So luckily it worked out great. So I shadowed the students. I connected with some of the students. I connected with the program director. And my trajectory for third year and fourth year dental school, I went in intentionally trying to rack up good academic scores and research and being involved with school with the intentions of going to LA. When fourth year happened, when match happened, I applied. I didn't even get the interview. And I was like, wow, 2 years of hardship, trying to keep in touch, showed up unannounced. And I did whatever I can possibly to be able to at least get an interview, right? Didn't work out. And then my second match was at UOP, which is in San Francisco.
Okay.
So got matched there, did a year of residency there, and then worked there for about a year, and then made my way down to LA.
And you might find it as a funny question, but what is it with you that is always fueling you towards this excellence? Because you were also honored with winning the governor's medal for academic excellence. And it seems that every single step you've been trying to reach for that. Is it something that was transmitted through your parents? Is it just that a inner pressure that you've created for yourself? Where does it come from, and how are you able to deal with that on a daily basis?
Right. I mean, to be honest with you, I had no talent growing up. I had no opportunities, and even in high school, my grades weren't the best. It was only entering CJEP and then eventually undergrad that I realized that talent only brings you so far, and you have to be obsessed. And if you're obsessed with one thing and one thing only, and you wake up if it's 4 a.m, 3 a.m, whatever time it is, and you're starting your day and you're studying, eventually it will work out. You have to put in the work. And I remember even at the time when I was at McGill, and this is one of the stories that I shared with my recent TV show on Apple TV, is when I was at McGill, when I was tired, there used to be old squash courts right by the Curry gym is, and I used to put a yoga mat there and sleep.
Oh, wow, okay.
And a lot of people obviously didn't know about this, right? It's only slowly that I'm starting to open up about a lot of these things, but it's to that level of psycho. And I think you do have to be a little crazy to some extent to achieve greatness. And I remember there were times where I was just tired, and I'm sure, you guys are extremely smart. I'm sure you can all relate that, when you're tired, you just can't concentrate and study. So there's nothing more important than taking power naps or taking naps. And back then, the old Scotch courts were my spot. So that was
common enough for you too.
Yeah.
And, how does your current practice look like? Like, could you guide us through a normal week for you? And, is it mainly clinic? Is it interventional? How does it basically pan out?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, we're focusing on cosmetics. So patients come in, we do consults, and it's mostly veneers, porcelain veneers specifically. It could be composite veneers. It could be Invisalign. And really, a lot of these patients already have their general dentist. They just come to the practice with intentions of getting work done. And that's why practicing in Beverly Hills is a different beast, because stakes are higher, right? Your work is also being seen by other dentists, right? Because these patients have other dentists. But on a day-to-day, consults, aesthetic work, and then and on the side, I've been also very blessed to work on some media, on some TV platforms, and trying to grow that as well. So.
And in your workplace, are you the only dentist there, or you're a team?
Yeah, so it's myself and Dr Sep. So he's also a big dog in Beverly Hills. He's been there for a very long time too.
And who's your standard clients? Is it basically people that are, is it only like celebrities, or is it the common blowjo that basically comes and visits you? Who are the people that you basically have as clients?
Yeah, I mean, we get a lot of A-listers for sure. You know, we get a lot of big names. We get a lot of big investors, founders, tech people, but you also get the average Joe, you know, and, you know, a lot of people are reluctant and coming to the practice thinking that things are going to be very expensive. And it is an investment, but we do create like payment plans for a lot of people. So we do get a little bit of both, but there is a very high emphasis specifically on cosmetic dentistry, you know, which is something that a lot of people travel from different countries to seek for.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you actually about that, because you were saying in Montreal, like if you wanted to have like such a like not precise, but exactly what you wanted, it was not gonna happen in Montreal. So do you get people from like around the world?
Yeah, I mean, in Montreal, you still get somewhat of a demand for aesthetics, but you know, when you're looking at contrast, Beverly Hills, you know, you're doing it every single day, all day, every day, right? But to answer your question, yeah, we get a lot of patients that travel from different countries or different states, from Miami, from Dubai, and we set it up in a way where we can start and finish it in a short amount of time with our ceramists. So we do accommodate for people who are traveling.
And, you know, having this kind of clientele that comes to your clinic, you talked about the stakes being higher because, you know, there's a lot of dentists and people all have their dentist. But do you also feel a certain pressure because of the type of clients that you have?
I remember when I started, yes.
Okay.
Especially when you see people growing up on TV and movies all the time.
Like that's the smile that I did, right?
Yeah, for sure. So at the time when first starting out, yeah, but over time you realize that they're no different than you and I, right? And they're people just like anyone else, and they need care just like anyone else. And it's like I'm at a point right now where just having fun and exchanging stories, and it's nice to be able to, yeah, like you said, like see your work on the media.
It's interesting because we had received Dr. Lebon, who's a cardiac anesthesiologist, and we had basically talked about a similar point, and he said, you know, he does have sometimes celebrities that came on the operating table, and one of them asked him, like, are you going to treat me any different than the other patient? He said, no, anyways, in the first place, I treat every patient as if it was my mom, so it doesn't change anything for me. And I think that's a great approach, because if you start adapting and saying, oh, like this is this person and this person, it might just affect the quality of the work. You might overthink some things that you just do naturally, I guess. So yeah, that's a very, very important point.
Yeah. I mean, everyone has to be treated equal.
Absolutely.
Sure. It doesn't matter who you are, what you do. Yeah.
One of the questions that I think we could take the opportunity having a dentist on the show, and it's the first time we really go in that region of the body. It's just to go over some of the myths and the kind of the things that for you it's a no-brainer. You've been in this field for most of that, well, more than 1 decade and everything. But for us, it's just I'm brushing my teeth and passing the soie dentaire, and that's kind of my exposure to that area. So I was wondering, is there a lot of conception or myths that you see, like people coming into your clinic? I know you have like a subspecialty, but still comes with preconception, and you feel that you need to do a lot of education and kind of bring back more facts.
Yeah,
and
of course. That's a great question. I think the biggest one, specifically in cosmetic dentistry, are teeth preparations. So what does that mean? That means that when you look on social media and you hear veneers, the first thing that comes to mind is shaving the teeth down into little tiny pegs, right? That's not a veneer, right? That's not a proper veneer preparation. If it's very well done, you actually don't need to shave down much, just very, very little to none in most cases. So I think the biggest misconception is when people come in worried that we're going to shave their teeth down into tiny little teeth, right? So that's probably one of the biggest ones. And then two, you know, every now and then you hear other elements like charcoal and like brushing with charcoal, and a lot of these things that can be very abrasive on the gums and can lead to problems like a recession. So And I think another one that I can also think of on top of my head is brushing hard. So a lot of people think that, by brushing hard, you're really getting it nice and clean. But the problem with that is that it's so abrasive. So you actually end up causing more harm because you're causing more recession on your gums. So I think these three are probably three of the most stigmatized, or I guess the misconceptions that people generally get wrong.
And you mentioned that most of your clients come from like a background of they will probably have their primary dentist, but do you still get those clients who don't have a primary dentist and you have to kind of go over those things?
Of course. So we have patients that come in just for general work every now and then as well, where we have a hygienist and he does her or his cleaning, or they're cleaning every couple months as well. So we do have recurring patients that come in, but I'd say a good chunk of them already have their dentist, and then they just come for their aesthetic work and they go back.
I see.
I remember another thing I also wanted to share that really was a huge pivotal moment for me, and it was an emotional process. I remember when I came from Montreal to San Francisco, it was very difficult because when you're Canadian, a lot of your credit cards don't work in the States. You don't have an identification, right? You don't have Social Security. You don't have a credit score. You're starting from scratch. And these are all very difficult elements, because getting a car is difficult because you don't have a credit score. And then I remember even having issues with my credit cards because I've got Canadian ones but not American ones. So I couldn't get a mattress for a while. So when I settled in the apartment, I was actually sleeping on the floor for almost a month, So I would put my clothes on the floor, put a little towel over it, and then just sleep on the ground day after day, hoping that eventually the whole bank situation would work out. And then, and it did. And then I finally got my mattress, and it was the best feeling ever. That was an awesome day. I remember there were even times where when I moved from San Francisco to LA, I didn't have any jobs lined up. And it's very difficult for a Canadian because you need visas, you need permits, especially if you're a citizen. So at the time, when you're making the move to LA with nothing lined up, it's tough finding work. And I remember taking the bus from Santa Monica, that's where I live, and then to Beverly Hills every morning with my CV and my suit and tie, and going on Google Maps and seeing who are the dentists in Beverly Hills, and going to the practice little by little by little, and handing in my CV, and unannounced. And I was like, well, I'm Dr. Pouresa. I just moved to here, and I'm here to help out if you're looking for any work. And doing that and getting rejected over 30, 40, 50 times, that's tough.
And that's hard.
And at the time, I was burning through my savings for like months after months, having nothing lined up. And it was a dark time,
What made you persevere? What is it that, is your family back here? Was it a sort of like network support? Was it just yourself being, as you said, psychologically driven, but also almost delusional about where you wanted to land? What helped you persevere in those dark moments?
Yeah, I mean, definitely have to be delusional for sure. But my thoughts are there should never be a plan B if there's a plan A, right? You should always have a plan A and just stick with the plan A. Even if there are trials and tribulations and challenges that encounter, never forget your first plan. And I think a part of me knew that eventually it'll work out after trying and trying and trying. Could have been the first attempt, the 10th, the 20th, the 30th, but I knew eventually after doing it consistently, it was going to work out. And it did, and things went full circle, and it just got good from then, and blessed to be where I am now.
How much time did it take you to get to your
2 months?
2 months, okay.
Yeah, so 2 months.
Stressful 2 months, yeah.
Of course. Because, at the time, 2 months of not working, not having any family in the States, and you're pretty much alone, right? So you're, you're burning through all your savings, essentially.
Did you ever consider at a certain moment, like, in your lowest moments, maybe I should just go back to Montreal? Maybe I should just, start over again there. That's where I'm from. And did these sorts of ideas come?
Not at the time. There were maybe moments where there were maybe times where I was maybe a little reluctant, but I was gonna do whatever it takes to get there. You know, even if it wasn't in Beverly Hills and it was other parts of LA, or living outside of LA, whatever the case was, I was gonna do whatever it took to get to that point. Just being in second year dental school, wanting LA and not working out, and then going to San Francisco and then doing residency, then working there, and then making the move to LA. Just because I knew that was my dream and I wanted it from the moment I was in Montreal.
And if we fast forward a few years, you said that like being a Canadian in the U.S. environment, it can be hard just for kind of citizenship, just not having the paperwork. So have you tried to like do your American citizenship just to make like things easier for you, or you're still like?
Of course, yeah. My lawyers are taking care of it. Okay, so then they're taking care of everything else for me. My publicist and my lawyer, God bless them. But when you have no one to look up to, and when you don't have any mentors that have been through the same path as you have, it's tough. Apart from Google and ChatGPT, you really don't have anyone else to look up to. So there were a lot of, and that's why I love this platform so much, is because I want to use this platform as a way to voice that it is possible to start from a very small place in Montreal and eventually make it to Beverly Hills and working as a doctor.
And if you reflect back on your journey, because it was not like you clearly worked your way to where you are right now. Is there, because I understand the message of like if there's a will, there's a way, but is there something that you can identify in your journey that maybe at this time that was not the best decision I've made and I could have changed that, and maybe the way would have been easier for me to get there?
Yeah, so I think in life there is no such thing as regrets, right? It's lessons and experience, and you move on. Because there are other things I would have changed, of course, there are tons. But at the end of the day, that's what shaped me to who I am today. So at the end of the day, I say it's an experience. And I think one of the biggest lessons that I've learned over time that I wish I could have told my younger self is perspective drives performance. So what does that mean? That means that when you look at a glass, right, like this, for example, you can look at it as being half full or half empty, right? And it's all perspective. So when something hard comes to you, you can look at it as being a burden. Shoot, what I'm going to do. Or you can look at it as an opportunity to grow and become better and become stronger and become resilient.
That's incredibly inspiring to hear. And, it's a field, cosmetic dentistry also, that is becoming more and more in demand, more and more global. And I hear and see a lot of people that are exploring these treatments, for example, veneers, abroad, and sometimes for mostly economical reasons, but also sometimes because they think that there's some expertise in other countries. I think of, Latino America and Turkey sometimes. What is your thought on people that basically go to these outer sea destinations for these treatments, you being, in the field, seeing how the practice can vary between countries?
Of course. Medical tourism and dental tourism is very popular, right? There's some good doctors in the States and Canada, and there's some bad doctors. Same with abroad. Other countries have good and bad doctors. I will say the gold standard in America, in the States and Canada, are extremely high. So the quality of care you get here, the level of knowledge you get in the States, both in the States and Canada, right, are elite. And I remember even going through residency, I realized that as a Canadian, as a McGill graduate, I knew a lot, a lot more than I thought I knew. So they prepare you very well for in Canadian institutions. Now, that being said, we do get a lot of problems from other countries as well, where patients get their work done somewhere else because it was a lot cheaper. But cheaper doesn't mean good quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had patients that went to countries getting veneers done, and then they came back with a lot of pain, and then they needed not one, not two, but 8 root canals. Not fun, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because the work wasn't done properly and it was way too aggressive. So even though there are great doctors abroad, when it comes to dental tourism, I'm a little bit more reluctant, and it's like it's good to do it right once, but do it right.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And how do you see your practice evolving in the next 5, 10, 15 years? You seem to be a go-getter. You seem to never be without, okay, I'm going for a next step.
Yeah.
What is that next step for you in your current practice and reality?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are a few. So one of the main ones is continuing to exude great confidence in patients, right? I think what really gives me purpose in my life is changing other people's lives and smiles and confidence. I think that's what gives a lot of meaning in my life. So being able to continue to deliver such care is hands down one of the most greatest things I'm blessed for. But I want to change dentistry, and I have been working on items with manufacturers and patents where we're trying to develop things to change dentistry, and that's still work right now, and hopefully it'll pick up in the next few years. But I want to be able to hopefully change dentistry for the good. So we'll see where that goes.
And being on a podcast like about healthcare, we often talk about like the multidisciplinary side of thing. I would think in the cosmetic dentistry, we think for me one of the thoughts is everything's surgical that could also be done, like chirurgien maxillofacial.
Yeah.
Do you find yourself working with them in specific case, or what's kind of the interaction between what you do and what they do?
Yeah, so definitely with the oral maxillofacial surgeon, they're great. When it comes to dentistry, you can, as a general dentist, do a little bit of everything. You can do implants, you can do wisdom teeth removal, you can do a lot of complex things, a lot of complex surgery, like oral surgeries. But one, you have to want it. And two, you have to make sure that you're delivering the work at the highest standard of care, which oftentimes is one of the reasons why a lot of dentists, including myself, refer to a specialist, right? So even though you get your training on doing a lot of oral surgery work, to this day, I like to refer my work out to an oral surgeon that helps me with or does all the extractions and implants. I just don't like doing them, you know.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So, and there's no better service than giving it to someone that's very good at it too, and then just working with them to give them good care.
And off the mic, you were basically saying that you enjoyed these sort of platforms because it gives you the opportunity to reach these kids, these young dreamers that aspire to big things, success stories that they can rely on, that they can take as mentors. Why do you think we're lacking these sort of mentors? Social media can be great, but it can also be bad because, you portray sometimes images that are not reality. But when we have the opportunity to hear stories like yours, it can really be taken as an engine to motivate people towards greatness. Do you feel that there's a lack of mentors in nowadays, and why are we lacking these mentors in your field, for example?
Yeah, and I think the biggest, or I guess rather the shortest answer to that question is hard to find mentors because. Let me think on this. Because, to me, one of the reasons why it was so hard to find a mentor was because I didn't really have any connections growing up. I didn't have any doctors in the family, didn't have any dentists in the family. And with all honesty, I didn't know how to seek one, right? I think now, as time passes by, there are more systems, there are more organizations where they can connect you with people who want to become a mentor. But to me, a mentor is not someone that you just find. It's someone that when you go to conferences, when you go to organizations, it could be the doctor down the street, someone that you're connecting with that does great work and you look up to them and they can help and guide you. I remember growing up, I didn't really have many mentors to look up to. I had maybe like micro ones where I would see them go through like dental school or do great care, but never in my life have I seen a dentist make the move to Beverly Hills and practice only cosmetic dentistry. So it was tough. And I think that one of the best advices I can give is if you see someone that you're intrigued by, email them, call them. Maybe not call them, but text them or message them on Instagram.
Mm-hmm.
To this day, I get students or I get people who message me and ask if they can come shadow. So it's important to make sure that you're putting in also the work to seek out help or to seek out a mentor. It's not going to be just given to you, right? So that's important so it's important to really put in the work to connect with people.
The reason why I asked that is because, as we're concluding the episode and we're unfortunately limited by the time that we have with you, but I would be curious to hear you on if you have the opportunity to see yourself in front of that 13-year-old Sep Pouresa going into that shadowing with his notes. What would you tell him after everything that you've had to go through, after everything that you've become? What is the message that you'd have for that 13-year-old self?
My message to my 13-year-old self would be that obsession beats talent every single time. You could be gifted, you could be smart, but if you don't put in the work and if you don't put in the hours and just keep beating on your craft, you're not going to become successful. So it's really important to take a step back and see how you can structure your life, not only your work, but also your work-life balance, right? Being able to have a good work-life balance and just keep raising the bar and put in the hours and keep mastering your craft to really become the best version of yourself.
Well, we're super grateful to receive you. It was a great talk. I think super, super inspiring. I think it gives everybody the hopes that even if you're from a small town anywhere in the world, you can aspire to great things, and hard work, as you said, beats talent. So thank you for being with us. Thank you for sharing a lot of those hard moments, but also the good ones. And as for us, we see you in the next episode. Thank you.